Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Yes, it is time to talk about the status of the nation. I know I have been gone for a while, but life. But we're back to talk about the Republic and everything else that is going on. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the State of the Nation address. Yes, SONA. That is the big thing that's happening in the Republic right now. And it's big because as it stands, we don't know who is going to deliver SONA. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, as I'm recording this on the 4th of February 2018, Jacob Zuma is still the president of the Republic, but that might be changing if you believe the report by the City Press. Now, a report by the City Press came out today, which I'll get into a bit later. First thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is this whole idea of two centers of power. And I'm sure you guys have heard that phrase being used before. Now, the way it came about was that Thabo Mbeki was seeking a re-election for ANC president for the third year in a row. Now, what that was going to do is that it was going to create two centers of power within the ANC, because you would have had him effectively as president of the party and Jacob Zuma as president of the country. And the ANC that said that they don't want that because it's going to create too much chaos. They don't want two centers of power. And two centers of power would basically mean that you have one power in charge of the Republic, the Union buildings, which is the president. And then you have another power in charge of the Luthuli House and the party, which is the president of the party. So they just felt like you can't have those two people being different people because it creates chaos. Now, leading up to the December conference last year where the new top six was elected, Fikile Mbalula said something very interesting when asked of what his feeling is about this whole idea of two centers of power. And Fikile basically said that he doesn't think that there's two centers of power because to him, ANC is a center of power, which, I mean, alright, because that's not what, people mean. But, I mean, I guess it made sense for him to give that kind of answer because, it's a kind of answer that lets everybody know that regardless of what happens, the party is the one that's strong, the party is the one that has power. So when he was asked even, in that interview in December, how it would work, having two centers of power with a president of the party and the president of the country, he basically said that that would be a relationship that the NEC would have to manage between the two and make sure that it works harmoniously. And when he was also asked about the recalling of Jacob Zuma, Fikile Mbalula basically said that, that is something that would be decided by the ANC, because why? The ANC is a true center of power, which, In January last year, Jacob Zuma had an interview with the SABC and he was also talking about the whole idea of two centers of power. And he basically said that when you have one person in charge of the party and another person in charge of the country, they're essentially in a position where they would be competing with one another. Now, ANC, because it's the ruling party, their policies are the ones that get implemented into government. Now, when these two people are different, you would essentially have the president of the party instructing the president of the country on what to do, or the president of the party looking at things that the president is doing and not quite being in agreement with them. And that's kind of the challenge that he was speaking to when you've got two different people in charge of this one position. Now, in the interview, he also spoke about the issues of deputies. Now, you remember a lot of the drama last year within the ANC was this whole issue of succession, right? With him picking Nkosazana to be, his preferred candidate for presidency, and we all see how that turned out. But what he basically said when talking about the issue of succession and deputies, he said that it is not an ANC policy that the deputy should automatically be president. It's just something that's always been done, which, I mean, he is correct. If you look from Nelson Mandela to Thabo Mbeki to himself, and obviously so, it's just something that's always been done. And I think part of the issue of why there was drama in the party and why they weren't quite agreeing with him is that because it was something that was always done, it saved a lot of conflict, which was what the ANC was dealing with a lot last year in terms about who was going to be president. So here we are, and the question now becomes, who will be delivering SONA 2018? Now, the City Press article that I was talking to you guys about that has come out today on the 4th basically says that the ANC top six are going to be meeting with the president and they are going to be asking him to step down. That's what the article says. Now, this is where it kind of gets complicated. can I just say, I just wish that the top 6 of the ANC would all come together and agree about what they're going to say so that they don't give conflicting statements to the press. When speaking about this meeting that the city press says that the ANC is going to have, Ace Magashule basically said that they're going into this meeting with no condition. Basically that the removal of Jacob Zuma is not going to be on the agenda. He also says that they're not going there with an attitude of whether he should step aside or if he shouldn't, or if he's going to be recalled or if he is not going to be recalled. So that's basically what Ace was saying. But then enter Paul Mashatile, which, by the way, the fact that Ace and Paul are part of the ANC top 6 is just, that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, enter Paul, and he basically says that, you know, because of all the tension that's been going on in the ANC, it would just be best if Jacob Zuma, you know, were to be recalled and step down. So this is what I'm saying when I say I feel like the top 6 needs to agree as a squad, as a unit, before they come out to speak to the press, because they're giving a lot of conflicting reports and no one really knows now what's going to happen. But what I found interesting about what was in the City Press article is that the person that they were talking to, who's an insider, basically says that Jacob Zuma is willing to step down and has been willing to step down for the longest time, and that all he's been waiting for was the party to tell him to go. Because this person seems to think that Jacob Zuma will only leave if the party wants him to go. So he's still of the opinion that if the people don't want me, then I'll go. I find that hard to believe, because this is still the same man who said this last year and the year before, that if the people don't want me to be here, then I'll go. There have been protests, there have been votes of no confidence, even votes that were gotten from some people in his party being very clear that the people say that you must go, and that he didn't. So the idea that the top 6 simply asking for him to leave will be him leaving, don't know if I believe it. It's also said that the NEC will call for a special meeting if the meeting that the top 6 has with Jacob Zuma doesn't really go anywhere. And I'm assuming that in that special meeting that the NEC calls, they'll then have a formal vote, if you will, for him to step down. Now, all of this is happening in the mix of, you know, hashtag hands off Zuma, which, you know, hashtags are not difficult to come up with. I'm just saying they could do better. But it's in the middle of that, it's in the middle of all the charges and everything else that's going on. And it makes me wonder if the meeting that they're going to have with him today is actually going to yield anything really. Now, of course, the issue of him stepping down, as far as Paul is concerned, is that it will solve this issue of 2 centers of power, which leads me to ask, is that them saying then that if he gets recalled, then Cyril will become our acting president? Because then that solves the issues of 2 centers of power. Or does a new person get appointed to be the acting president, much like what happened when Thabo Mbeki was recalled and Kgalema became our acting? But then we'd still have 2 centers of power. So maybe the issue then isn't 2 centers of power, but it's about whether or not the person who gets there will be someone who, I don't know, gets along with Cyril. Do you understand the question that I'm asking? Because Zuma stepping down and getting an acting president has 2 centers of powers still. I don't know what's going on over there, but hopefully they'll have a way to figure this all out. But ultimately, what the report is basically saying is that the only reason why Jacob Zuma hasn't stepped down is because no one has asked him to. And again, that to me is incredibly funny, that you're telling me that all of this time, the only way that they could have gotten rid of him is to simply just say, please go, and he would have. But again, with everything that's happened before, I don't really think that it's that simple. So the question then becomes, will he go or will he stay? You know, will he deliver the State of Nation? Mind you, the State of Nation is on Thursday. That is 4 days away. So if the report is true that they do ask him to step down today, tomorrow we might wake up with a whole new president of the Republic, and this will be the person to deliver the State of Nation. Who knows? What I have found interesting though in all of this is how public perception seems to be changing around Cyril. I think when he got appointed in December, and after the December break and everybody was back in January, I think the expectation was that Zuma would have been gone fast. I think the expectation is that Sona would have come around and we would have had a whole new president delivering the address. But I almost kind of don't blame Cyril also at the same time, because the thing is, it's a little awkward, because I feel like it's a timing issue, right? So we come back from the December break, you have a little bit of January. And I think everybody thought after the January 8th address, Zuma would go. But that didn't happen. Now, before you know it, we're finding ourselves in February. State of the Nation needs to happen. The budget speech needs to happen. So it's a little awkward in terms of timing. Now, the question is whether they'll do it or not. And I think people were expecting Cyril to have a much more faster approach than what they're seeing right now. I mean, you have to remember that these are the same people who are talking about how they don't want Zuma to be embarrassed and how, you know, they're looking at all sorts of options for it to be transitional. And even so, when he was in Davos, he was talking about how Zuma is very anxious about how this is going to go. It seems that the approach to him has been kid gloves. I mean, even with what the city press is reporting that, you know, they're going to have this meeting with him and ask him to go. It seems, you know, very like they're being very delicate with him, and I think a lot of people didn't expect it. But I mean, what else is Cyril supposed to do? Doesn't seem that he has many options at his disposal, because people are talking about, okay, why don't they give Zuma a deal? And I'm like, what kind of deal? So a deal that says you won't be prosecuted. I don't see how Zuma's going to take that, because any amnesty or protection like that would be him assuming his guilt, and we all know that Jacob Zuma doesn't think he's done anything wrong. So the idea of immunity from prosecution or any type of deal, I don't think Zuma would take, because it would almost be him saying, yes, what I did was wrong, yes, I was guilty, but thank you for having mercy upon me and letting me go and go live my nice life. I don't see that happening. Ultimately, the State of the Nation is happening on Thursday. The question becomes who is going to deliver it and what that day will actually be like, because we've seen all the political parties from the UDMs to the EFF and the DA, they've all come with, you know, their applications to the High Court. So I imagine, much like any time Jacob Zuma speaks in Parliament, it'll be chaos. There will be no one listening, and it's just going to be a whole lot of drama. It's tricky and it's challenging because everybody wants him to go, but I think what they're struggling with is the how and the when. And the longer they take, the more public perception about them as a party, as a top six, even as Cyril, the more that, you know, is going to change, and people are going to start to be like, doesn't seem like you guys are, you know, big on this action that you were talking about. I mean, even Cyril talking about that when he comes into power, you know, corruption and certain families are going to be prosecuted. It's a lot of big talk, but I think people want to see it finally come to fruition. So, again, February 4th, 2018, Jacob Zuma still is a president of the Republic, but by the 5th, that might be a completely different story. Who knows? He might give Sona, he might not give Sona. Who really knows at this point? But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Sound off in the comment sections. Let me know what you guys think. Is he gonna go? Is he gonna stay? And if he stays, how long is he gonna stay for? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.